Races of other worlds look at us as the lesser race because we are used to giving excuses.
If the white man takes their hands off Africa and off the federating units in Africa, you see that a typical African man can self-govern. But they exploit weaknesses and cracks in the wall is what we have today.
The earth can provide for everybody's need, but not for every man's greed. Corruption, stealing, that makes one man have 10 G-wagons and the other man can't eat.
Welcome to the Resurgence Podcast.
Everyone, you're welcome to the Resurgence Podcast. My name is Oli. Today's topic is, are Africans truly the lesser race? And we're going to be delving into some critical and often misunderstood topics. Join us as we explore the complexities and nuances of what it means to be truly African.
Also understand this, I want to take us back in history a bit, because so that we don't forget the subject matter. It's about if Africans are actually lesser, okay? And if you understand why Africans the way Africans are indigenously or regionally, a lot of these things will make sense. See, a typical African man, before the invasion, before you have anybody come encroach on and look at what it is we were doing, had everything at their behest. The rain rained when it should rain, the sun shone when it should shine, food grew when it should grow. There was no point of saving up food. You know, there's this saying that necessity is the father of invention, meaning if there is no need, there is no invention. I don't know if you're following this. Yeah. A typical African does not have a need to invent, does not have a need to go outside of his comfort zone because everything he needs is readily available. You get this, okay? And this is how the white man met us. Because I said some of the things you postulated, you proposed, you said about Lord Lugard and some other white guys and how they documented the history of the African. I oppose it 100%. The reason is this. They spoke from their own conquest mindset. They came to conquer and they saw the people they wanted to conquer as, look at these ants. That is from where they wrote the story. And the idea is a typical African does not intend to conquer, at least not outside of his own enclave. If an African wants to conquer the next tribe, it is just to prove superiority, nothing else. Wants to prove a point. And most times now, woman or now something ain't gonna cause the war. Yeah. Not any other thing. Do you get? So a typical African is just contented, not lesser in his mind, but just contented enough to not want to explore and violate some other man. A typical white man would readily violate you for his own pecuniary gains. So when you say that the white man knows when to stop evil, oh no, I disagree 100%. In fact, documented history has it that a typical white man on the path of evil does not know when to stop. Until evil consumes that man, he does not stop.
Mr. Wakuche, you also said, like what he's saying, when you talked about the judge ruling and the judges ruling and all of that.
The panel.
Good. Remember King Leopold of Belgium that killed a lot of people in Congo? Now, your theory about the white man not knowing when to stop, that is a very perfect example that begs to differ. We should not just say the white man knows when to stop evil. Because
a typical white man does
there
not.
There are 1001 white men that would glory and gloat in doing evil.
Sure.
Even till date.
I'll go back to King Leopold. Was there any war that made the Belgians hand over power to the Congolese? There was no war. They knew obviously that their policy or strategy wasn't going to work, wasn't sustainable. They handed over power to the Belgians. And under 2 years, Congo went into what? Civil war. Lumumba, Kasavubu, and Co.
But it was essentially orchestrated. Both the handover and the civil war were orchestrated.
Yes, but I'll tell you something. Achebe said, it is he who brings in the ant-infested firewood that indirectly invites the lizard. Back to Lord Lugard and what they documented. I'm not saying this as an ethnic supremacy or anything. the first place he conquered was northern Nigeria. And what he found on the ground was the Fulani Emirate system. And
Yeah.
he said, and I quote, that the ruling Fulani elite could not differentiate between their personal pocket and public treasury. Back to modern Nigeria, the highest form of corruption we always have in Nigeria is when the Northerners rule. It's a fact. Buttresses and confirms what Lord Lugard said about them. Look at the kind of what we're hearing about the so-called Mr. Integrity. The white man is not a perfect being.
Mr. Wakuche, what of Lumumba?
Lumumba, I'll tell you what Lumumba, who Lumumba is. Was a man who couldn't make peace, and was a man who showed his weakness to the white man that he just I'm sorry to say it, bloody black man. When the problem started in the Congo, the State Department invited the warring parties on how the road to peace, how to share power. They had a very intellectual, meaningful meeting, and after the meeting, he called the State Department people that he would like to sleep with a blonde woman.
Now, as atrocious as that might sound,
I will bring the book next week.
just a minute, as atrocious as that might
filed on
sound,
him.
hold on. So Lumumba asked to sleep with
That he would
him.
like to sleep with a blonde woman. And
Yes.
it was for him.
Hold on. Now, the white man reports that as acrimonious and atrocious. But if a white man comes to Nigeria on a visit and insists he wants to sleep with the roundest bottomed woman,
he will do it privately.
we would allow him
Will not be as part of
and
the
we will
official job.
celebrate him for doing it. So the same way, they vilify us for doing what we celebrate them
Yeah,
for
for
doing.
doing.
It is
Literally.
it's still about the hunter and the lion.
I'll tell you something again.
Sorry, I want to come
Please,
in here.
uh-huh.
When you said something about the white man knowing when to stop evil. Let's look at our modern world. I think their own evil is covered in racism. Look at what's going on in America and some other countries. White people are killing the blacks, even in the UK. I met a lady some time ago, and she said that her younger brother does Uber in London. And he picked some white boys just because he's black. They almost strangled him to death. And we keep hearing such news.
That is
like
one of the
this.
hazards of a taxi driver's job everywhere in the world.
No, I'm even just saying, because you know,
Trying to say that there is racism in the world today.
That the whites know when to stop evil. That is where
I'll tell you something now
coming from.
that will shock you people about the black people they assault or they do these things to in the advanced world.
Evil is evil. Oh.
The white man
However I
will
want to
not
put
see
it.
how you are dressed now and assault you.
Well,
I disagree.
But when you put your jeans where it should not be,
No.
No.
you are walking up.
you are generalizing, sir.
Talking
Mr.
upwards.
Wakuche.
You are
You
generalizing.
need to
No.
understand the
So-
meaning of racism.
White man fails to engage a black man that is intellectually sound. They don't like it.
And what does he
They're
do
not
to
used
that?
to it.
And what does he do when he encounters a black man?
He tries to
He
suppress
finds a way
Yes.
to bring him down.
Down.
E.g., he finds a Lumumba who, because he wants to sleep with a blonde
you.
woman, and he finds that story and weaves it
White
to
man
discredit
fears
him.
the black man who's intellectually
Sound.
because
And we,
the man
as
is
black
physically
people,
superior to him.
and we as
Physically.
black people,
Why
we have a
does
crab
the white
mentality.
man fear a black man that is physically and intellectually sound? It brings us to the same thing, that we are not the lesser race.
Exactly.
See, when I use, say, the black man is a lesser race, it's in context. Man is man.
Okay.
But the black man finds it difficult to thrive in Africa. But put him in the advanced world. Give him all the facilities the white man has put in place.
Okay, so
Sir.
what if I tell us a story that very few human beings on this planet have heard before?
Okay?
Good. And it's about Nigeria. Do you know that in 1914, when Lord Lugard constituted and amalgamated the unit called Nigeria today, that a unit called Egba was not part of that amalgamation?
I agree. I know.
Because they had gotten their own independence before 1914. A lot of people do not know, but
I know.
Egba as a unit had gotten their independence from Britain,
Yeah.
and they were a self-governing body. They were a country outside of Nigeria before then.
Yeah.
Okay, now the white man, Lugard, wanted to unify Nigeria and was like, who are these ones that
people,
are standing apart, standing afloat? So they came up with ways to cause infighting, divide and rule, and they cause issues and they got there and, just like something similar to what happened
In Lagos too.
October 20th.
Okay.
Something very similar, and they did a crackdown and they said they couldn't govern themselves, although it was proven, this is where I'm going to, that they could govern themselves. They had been governing for themselves for I don't know how long, 5 years, 20 years, I'm not sure of the data now, before their nation, their country was now run over by Lord Lugard because he wanted to assimilate it into Nigeria. Where I'm going to is this. That unit self-governed. They self-governed. See, if the white man takes their hands off Africa and off the federating units in Africa, you see that a typical African man can self-govern. But they exploit weaknesses and cracks in the wall is what we have today.
Which still boils down to the fact that it is he who brings in the ant-infested firewood and directly invites the lizard.
Mr. Wakuchi,
Okay.
you said a white man would not assault or take advantage of a black man.
You want to assault and die.
He's intellectually sound.
Yes. So how about we think back to when blacks started becoming doctors, neurosurgeons in the hospitals, and the whites would insist that they don't want to be attended to by a black doctor, not because of anything they had done. That was then. Recently, in May, CNN reported that some black passengers were taken off the plane for being black, and their reason was they had body odor.
Yeah.
How would you, in a situation like that, say, now these people did not do anything, in quotes, but because they are black, they were assumed to already carry a stereotype.
There is a worst form of racism called xenophobia, which we Africans are the ones that practice today.
To each other.
To each other.
South Africa.
But before you even go on to
It's
answer the
worse than
question,
that. We have
sir,
the same skin, but we're not differentiating on borders.
there's something I want us to
So the
clarify.
black man
here.
is still going lower.
I want us to go to clarify something. So we keep saying the black man, the white man, but we should know that there are no absolutes. There are white
And yes,
men
I want us to
who have
clarify.
empathy.
So the black race has the African American. Some Hispanics are black. So we need to narrow down or centralize our discussion when we're talking about the black
Now,
race.
let me now say something
So
about the same
we are
so-called
referring
US.
to not just Africans, but referring to blacks all over the world.
Now,
Every tribe, race,
that's in US now.
continent that
The African
are
American
blacks.
doesn't want to see the Africa
Africans, exactly.
in the US today. They're not happy with the Africans, the immigrants, modern immigrants like us, who will come there and become doctors. We have the highest, we are the biggest, we are the most successful black people in the US. The African immigrants.
Because they have their own peculiar problems
Yes.
as
You
a
see,
result of systemic racism that has
Yes.
happened over the years in the
Malthus,
US.
if you read Malthus' theory of population, the most fundamental building block for economic development in a society, in a nation, is the family unit. It starts from the family unit. Daddy, mommy. You go to work, you come back. You go to work, you come back. You join your income, you raise your children. You push yourself, you sacrifice. They become graduates. Your son, his idea of a home is, I must be with my wife.
Yeah.
Your daughter, I must be with my husband. And it grows. That's where the African American failed. There's this paternity court I watch every day. I've not seen any African in that court.
But sir, now, so at that juncture,
I agree with Mr. Damola, in terms of the black African Americans.
Yes.
Because it goes back to
Slavery.
slavery, slave trade. It does. It has
Funny enough.
affected them.
Spent 400 years in
Funny
slavery.
enough, it's actually a little different this time around, but it still is similar. How do I mean? See, the breakdown of the home, the US, the breakdown of the home is also instituted by government. It's a form of systemic racism. You are right, however, that the home is the building unit. The moment you can get the home to succeed,
Yes.
society, that community will
come on.
succeed. And they discovered that. And do you know what they did? Now, a lot of people will not like this because it sounds, However, what the government did was simple. They broke the home. How? By supporting the women with funds. I don't know if you know about this in the US. They created a welfare system where single mothers get funding.
Benefits, yeah,
And then
from the government.
it became much more profitable for you to be a single mother than to be a married woman. And homes started breaking in the
US.
black community in the United States. And it was an intentional orchestrated thing. Why? They understand the power of the family. And the goal was just simple: break the family, you can break the community. It was simple. Now, fine, this is not a gender, feminist, that is not what we're talking about today. But having said that, it contributes. It's part of what is on the table.
Okay, Mr. Damola, so I've listened to your conversation so far, and while what you're saying, your opinions are very valid, I feel like you are giving quite a number of excuses for the African race. So it's like you're trying to portray the victim mentality, which is same as you are trying to defend the fact that we are the way we are because of we are in Africa.
Okay.
So,
okay.
is
I
that-
actually did not want to come across that way.
Okay.
It's a fine line. It's a fine line. I said it once, twice, that I don't appeal to the idea doesn't appeal to me, that every problem of the black man is directly from the white man.
Don't you think that's why the races of other worlds, the Asians, the Europeans, look at us as the lesser race? Because we are used to giving excuses. We are used to having the victim mentality.
I think the Western world has a grip on Africa or African leaders. Because if you look at what's going on, let's take an example. Well, I don't want to mention names specifically, but okay, let's look at Nigeria. Look at Nigeria, for example. If you look past leadership in the past, we would see that during the election in Nigeria, the leaders abroad in the Western world always have this support.
I was about to talk about that because, in the UK, a new prime minister was just elected. And there were a lot of conversations on social media. In fact, there was a video I watched and the man was saying, he was speaking in Igbo language and he was like, do you see any police here? Do you see boy in Nigeria? That kind of thing happens. Yes. So why is it the way we are? Why are we giving excuses for our systems and our lives or our culture and tradition and our way of life being backwards, unlike the rest of the world?
Because you're using a wrong index to measure us.
We need to liberate ourselves. We need to, tell ourselves, come together. Let's make our nation great.
Is it possible?
It's possible.
How?
It's if we have the right leaders, we have the right.
Now you're talking.
It's possible.
So a nation is not built from ground up. A nation is built from top down.
So you said make our nation. We're not talking about one nation.
So
are you talking
make
about
our nation sounds like we
look
should.
At what happened
there is
Kenya.
nothing
you
we
Kenya
can do.
On.
Yeah.
Okay, the protest. Nigeria had similar experience 2020. Mm-hmm. We had this protest for Kenya. We saw what happened. The whole world witnessed what happened. That when the military started firing at protesters and everybody, went their different ways, the protests dissolved and all that. We didn't push forward, probably because we were scared of our lives.
And what makes you think?
What happened in Kenya?
What makes you think
what
that?
Happened in Kenya?
Yes.
It has actually
caused a cataclysmic and caused a motivation of a drive towards a change. And what guarantees you that change is going to be a positive change?
We can't tell
what is the guarantee?
Until we act. If Kenya didn't, this last process in Kenya, Nigerians were already like, okay, we are tired, kind of having that attitude, like a discal attitude of, going out to protest. I miss the hardship. We just come online, we make noise, we just tweet, and and that it ends there. But after the protest in Kenya,
yes,
there's this drive, there's this motivation to go out there. And now I'm seeing a lot of things online.
Yeah, I've seen nothing. There's no motivation,
let's see how it goes.
It's not going nowhere.
Let's see how it goes. You can never
we
tell.
have failed to understand. We accuse Europeans of creating artificial borders in Africa. Virtually every European country, they also did the same thing to themselves. You look at France today, you think they are all French. No. They are Germans. in France, from Strasbourg area, that shares border with Germany. There are Italians in France, Corsica area. There are Vikings in France, Normandy, Calais. But they have the majority, the French, about 56%. But a revolution still happened there. What united them? Hunger.
But it was in a different time.
Well, I'm coming. Hunger. The Prime Minister of Catholic Cardinal Richelieu, who he heard that people were planning
A protest.
uprising. He went to see the king's wife. He couldn't access the king. He went to see the king's wife, Marie Antoinette, from the Medici family of Florence, and told her that people cannot even see bread to buy. To show you how detached she was, he said, if they don't see bread, why can't they eat cake? We don't blame her. She's from a family of wealthy people, over 12 generations. Maybe the cardinal heard that. He knew that the end was near. Woman didn't even know that cake was more expensive than bread. That's how detached she was. And it happened. The black man will get there, but unfortunately, my fear for Africa or for Nigeria is this. The kind of weapons we have today, it's going to be too bloody.
So are we trying to say that there are no countries in Africa that are doing well for themselves without the interference of the Western world?
Nigeria is one of the countries that are doing very well.
Excuse me. The president of
Nigeria is doing fairly well.
No, excuse
me.
Have you been? No, listen to me. See, if you say Nigeria is doing well,
I don't mean like we're doing. I don't get me wrong. I said compared to other African countries.
See, this problem, economists have seen it coming. I'm an economist. When your economic growth doesn't match your population growth, it's a time bomb. Leave all this banditry thing. If they were farming everywhere in the north and everything, it would have still been a problem. Because the economic growth is abysmal to your population growth. In the south here, we are doing controlled breeding because we are educated. In the north, they are breeding.
Like no man's business.
And that's what we're suffering from today. I schooled in Federal Government College in Maiduguri, so I understand.
But that is not truly what the problem is.
Well, I'm coming with leadership. Now, excuse me. Mahatma Gandhi said the earth can provide for everybody's need, but not for every man's greed. It is corruption, stealing, that makes one man have 10 G-Wagons and the other man can't eat. Yes, that is what's happening here. The mechanism to stop it is not there. We're too docile. That's number one.
Well, I agree with that.
Yes, we're too.
However, above and beyond that, our docility or otherwise, I actually don't see how it can stem the tide or turn things around. No matter how vicious we get, no matter how much we burn, still is not going to change things.
Mr. Damola, what areas, according to you, you said Nigeria. When I asked what countries in Africa are doing well, you said Nigeria.
Yeah.
How is Nigeria doing well?
Good question. Have you been to Gambia?
Not
Have you been to Guinea-Bissau? I'm mentioning Anglophone countries in West Africa now.
Okay.
If you get
it's not Anglophone, it's Portophone.
It's okay. So which other Gambia, Sierra Leone, Liberia,
Ghana.
Get to any of those countries and you run back to Nigeria.
Why?
In a hurry.
Why?
Like they are like your village. It's as if you just go village, go do Christmas, come back. Those places are ramshackles, so to speak. No, that is not to say that we're where we should be. I am not in any way. Okay, so let me digress a little. Now, I'm a Yoruba man, and the current president of Nigeria is a Yoruba man. And it would be logical for me to support him and say because he's my tribesman. See, I understand that there is greed in the heart of an average African.
Thank you.
And I do not have much of an issue with it. I'm saying chop your own, but let the poor man breathe. So here is the drift. Imagine this. There is acute shortage of food production. Even if you want to buy a private jet, can you enforce security in food producing areas of the country such that food security is available for everybody? You know, in Benue, I have some people in Benue where they find it difficult to go to their farms to harvest.
Yes. No.
So when is food not going to be expensive?
Yeah, no.
And you have a sitting president who is doing what exactly?
See,
What exactly?
number one, there's something that
How come you said Nigeria
Nigeria
is
is doing
better?
well.
Is doing
Better than
It
other
is
some
still
African
funny
countries?
enough, even as bad as it is, Nigeria is still
Because when
doing
you
way
mentioned
more,
Guinea
way
Bissau, I've been
better.
to Burkina Faso. Yes, you're correct. Those countries are like deserts. Burkina Faso says, I even saw
Now,
donkeys.
do you
and
notice that I
but this was
mentioned
some years ago?
I mentioned only Anglophone speaking
Yeah,
countries?
but
I intentionally didn't mention Francophone countries. Do you know why? Because Francophone countries from the surface look like they are built, and they are built by the French. However, they are not even self-ruling and self-governing. They have placeholder presidents and head of states. Is the reason why some countries in the past couple of years have revolted, and they now have military head of states who've divorced themselves from France.
Yes.
So they might have good buildings, but at the core, they are just placeholder states.
We said earlier there's sub-Saharan and Northern Africa. If we actually dip it, we can notice that North African countries are doing far better than sub-Saharan.
Let's use another name for them.
Economically.
Arabian. Let's use another name for them so that audiences at home understand. North African countries are essentially Islamic and Arabic
nations.
inclined nations.
But-
Yes,
But now-
they physically, geographically
But now-
live in Africa.
Now, see,
That's all that connects them to Africa.
now,
It still makes, they are still Africans.
no. The
Geographically.
Egyptians that built those pyramids and did all those scientific discoveries are the Nubians, the blacks, who are only one Nubian has ruled Egypt. And what's that in modern history? The present crop of Arabs are the ones that invaded and pushed them from the Arab world due to turmoil. Africa has a long way to go. And the first step in Africa changing the narrative is to get responsible leadership,
Leadership,
which
exactly.
we don't have to do.
And sensible followers.
When I say responsible leadership, it takes one man. That's when I say one man to change the narrative of a country.
I agree, 100%.
Anambra, you see Anambra today on the news every day that they are doing this, they are doing that. It took one man. I'm not his supporter. I'm not an Obi fan. But he showed them that your money can work for you. Unfortunately, he set a very bad example in the sense that you cannot measure up to him because of his square ways. He lived a very frugal life. It's his nature. It is nature. It's not, I'm not saying it's, but see, for the average politician, democracy or politics comes with heavy patronage. That's a fact everywhere in the world. Churchill said that democracy is not the best form of government, but it's the best form of government invented by man so far. It is the most representative of all types of government. That's the truth, but it's not the best. Everywhere in the world, anywhere you hear democracy, they are patronizing some party chieftains or the other.
Cross board, yes.
So when I hear that it's part of it. Lobby groups, all this. But however, he changed the narrative. The governor of Anambra knows that he has to do roads now. He has to do this, he has to do that. Before, they're not stealing the money. In fact, them. Nigeria just needs that one man.
Okay, so
No, maybe see, sorry to say, you are using the example of Rwanda. I have issues
exactly
with
what I wanted to say.
Kagame. I have issues with.
even countries like Namibia,
They have not started.
But look at Rwanda. Rwanda was
They
a
have
tour.
not
It was a war-torn country.
No,
sorry.
it was a country that was coming from genocide, from the worst, most savage. Hitler did his own genocide in Europe, but he used gas and guns. This one used machete. The most bestial genocide.
Yeah, so you can see how bad their
Yeah, that's how,
situation was.
that's how
But
bad the
yet,
black man
if
is.
you go to Rwanda now, you wouldn't prefer it to Canada or any other Western world.
No. See,
Because
they are on the upward curve. But number one, the man has stayed in power for so long. Let somebody else try now. You cannot know it all. You can't know it all. Yes, you have ruled for long. You have put them on the upward trajectory.
at least he started somewhere.
At least hand over.
He started
Do
somewhere.
election. Let other person try.
So you said something just a couple of minutes ago. While I try to deviate from issues of politics, I would say this. I mentioned something like that. I was like, you said something about leadership. And I said, yes, a country needs a good leader.
Just one man.
One man,
Just one man.
but it also requires sensible following. Let me explain. So Nigeria currently, let's use Nigeria as an example. Nigeria has a current president who, how he ascended to power is quite questionable. Whether he got there, it doesn't, right now it's beyond English speaking.
He's there now.
However, you have, see, the elites know what they are doing. They do divide and rule. It's the masses who behave silly. So you have infighting. Some people will say this person is not my president. And some people will say A, B, C, D, E. Instead of you using that voice that you have to speak to power. Number one, you've removed yourself even away from the place where you can speak. Can you question someone who is not your president? No, you cannot. Can you hold him accountable? No, you cannot. Do you know that is senseless following? It is not sensible following.
See, the problem is this. The mechanism or the structure of government in Nigeria. I'm going to say something now that's going to be very, very controversial, but I'll say it. Yesterday in the news, there's a senator called Ali Ndume, who brought a new lexicon to the English language. I pray that Webster's dictionary will accept that because I actually like the way it sounds. They call it kakistocracy. Kakistocrat. Simply means putting very, very unqualified people in important positions. He defined it. Is that what is bedeviling this government? I don't know. But however, with what is happening today in Nigeria, we need a surgical, the president needs to wake up. He needs to smell the coffee. The coffee is boiling. He has not smelt it. When it explodes, he will run. People are hungry.
That's right.
Listen to me. People are hungry. People are dying. I know how much my neighbors, I'm on your TJ, madam, I'm a civil servant, I take 1,000, take 500. For how long? The situation is dire. This never been this bad. I'm coming with, and lastly again, I'm going to tell you something. I've traveled virtually, I've been to every state in Yoruba land, everywhere, up and down. Yoruba people are the reason why the South is hungry. They have the highest landmass that is unutilized, both for residential purposes and for agricultural
Purposes.
Question is why?
I don't know.
Mr.
baffles
Damola,
me.
you're supposed to answer the why
You
of
are
that
the
question
biggest
because you
consumer
seem
of
to
Rodo,
have a lot
of
of
Shambo, of Tatache, of Timat, and you'll be crying that the Hausa mass pepper is expensive. But as you are looking at empty land,
So I think we should
you're looking at empty land every
crystallize.
day. The man from Kano.
Let's crystallize all of this.
We use buy fertilizer because his soil cannot produce it naturally.
naturally, yeah.
He will irrigate, transport, come to Lagos and still make a profit. And the man whose soil doesn't need fertilizer is staring at the land every day. Tomorrow, Fulani men have come to my land. Why would he come? The land is not being used.
You know, as Nigerians, I love us. We know problem definition.
I'm saying that why you
Coming up with solutions is the major challenge we have as Nigerians.
And why
Some
is that?
So
you know, if you have a chocolate of pepper, that's what you make.
let me speak to
Pepper.
this. Let me speak to
That
this.
was-
Let me speak to this. And it goes thus. See, it's an issue of conditioning. When you have a set of people who are aggressive, let me use men and women as an example. Men conquer, women are conquered. I know this is very controversial, forgive me, but it is just the truth. Men, by their nature, conquer.
But some women also conquer men like me.
Yeah, of course, some, but they are in the minority. But I'm going somewhere. Like someone said, if a lady has been through a lot of men, she sometimes does not even know who she is anymore. The reason being that women by their nature adapt to the men that they are with. So with each man you get to be with, you tend to adapt to him. The more men you've been with, the more men you adapt to. I'm going somewhere.
Okay,
Just a minute.
okay,
I'm
because-
going somewhere. The more men you adapt to, and at a point, that woman is conditioned different.
She becomes an adapter.
So,
She becomes
exactly.
an
So is it that when you're trying to, I mean, your adage or your illustration is trying to either counter or buttress what Mr. Wakuchi said. Why is the land in the south.
That's where I'm
West.
going to.
Dormant.
That's
So
where
in
I'm
the
going
south,
to.
in the west.
Not just that, I'm going. That's where
baffles
I'm
me.
going to.
Dormant.
So I just told us about women and the fact that because when you have a conqueror on one hand and you have someone who has settled to the point of I adapt on the other hand, chances are the adapter would just swallow hook, line, and sinker what has been presented to him. Let me present some of such facts. Only an Hausa man or a northerner can breed cows.
And I disagree.
No. I'm presenting
okay.
such falsehoods that we have embraced.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you get to any Yoruba land and you go to their abattoir, the Kara, that's what they call it,
Yeah.
you'll find that it is majorly
Northernly
held
wrong.
down by northerners.
Yeah.
It's almost as if no southwesterner can hold down and cultivate, if that's what they use for cows.
But I'll tell you the reason why.
Why?
It's just one disease that there's a vaccination for now. It's called trypanosomiasis, sleeping sickness. The flies here infect the cows with that disease. But if I buy cows now from the north, I take them to, I call a government vet. Each shot is about 300 naira. They inject them. They are good to go. Why is that those same cows that come here, they will still feed here because those people know where to go to and get the vaccination.
Now, you just talked about what lies underneath.
Yes, that's why.
But on the surface,
A lot of
people
people don't
have
know
been
that.
made
Yes,
to believe
yes.
that it is only an Hausa man
Yes.
or a northerner
Yeah,
that can
breed cows.
successfully
I agree.
breed
No, I agree.
cows.
I
And
agree.
it's the same thing. Recently, there's this awareness and consciousness in the southeast also that, of course, that the southeast land is cursed and nothing can grow there.
No,
I'm not. I'm
But
not. I'm just
there are mineral
reporting
resources
facts.
in the
Hold
east,
on, I'm not
in the
stating
southeast.
facts. I am not stating my opinion.
Okay.
I'm reporting facts. Like this has been going on for a while, but of late there's a consciousness that is coming up, and you see Southeasterners now boasting of, "I planted this in my backyard. It grew." Counter to what you people have been saying before. But here's the drift: they've also accepted it up until now. It is not until now that they are beginning to be like, which will go plant and it go grow.
You know the reason why the southeast didn't embrace agriculture? Landmass, we don't have land. Niger State.
It goes above and beyond
land
landmass.
Niger State is
It goes
bigger.
above and beyond.
Niger State is bigger than the whole southeast.
Mr. Damola, you
agree
seem
with
to
that.
have an excuse for
Oyo State is
every
almost the size of the
reason
whole
and
Southeast
every
State.
everything
We
pointed
don't have
out
land. That's why we don't farm.
towards
We
the
don't have
African race. It's like you're giving excuses why we are the way we
Now,
are.
I am not giving an excuse.
Oh, excuse,
I'm
wait.
saying if you
the
condition
man
a
who
mind,
the man who removed Yoruba land from a feudal society. The difference between Yoruba land and the north was just small. They had very powerful monarchs who could give the Oyomesi incentives to follow his path. One man freed Yorubas, Chief Obafemi Awolowo. I used the road one time. I was a contractor then to PHCN from Ibadan to Abeokuta. Wanted to use that normal Shagam interchange. And at the time we got to Guru Maharaji, they say, ọ̀nà ti dí o. That driver, the trailer driver said that, but there's another road. When I went back into town, Omi and Gio, the next thing, under 30 minutes, we were in Abeokuta. And the road was good. And that road was built by Awolowo. While we were on that road in the middle of the night, they were showing me farm settlements Awolowo established that were bringing out produce, even though small, on the road. Why can't people revive all these things? Now, let me tell you my own understanding of the Yoruba man. Yoruba man now preferred air-conditioned work.
that's where I'm going to. It is not a Yoruba
To
man that
agriculture.
prefers air-conditioned work. Don't let's get it twisted. It's a typical Nigerian. We've been brainwashed
But how come the
to
North
think
doesn't
that
like air-conditioned work till today?
because the North is different from the South. How come when the whites came, they separated the North from the South? I mean the South as a whole, Southeast, Southwest, South. Why? Because governing the Northerner was so easy. They
Was easier,
had
yeah.
a
Was easier.
structure
Yeah, on ground,
in
yeah.
place,
But-
different from what we have.
On the surface, the Hausas are known for agriculture,
Yes.
planting and all that.
Which is
The
just
Yorubas
Ah.
prefer air-conditioned work. The Igbos are business-minded. That is the way it's been divided. Or how
That's
No, it's
what
not
we
divided.
think.
No, but see,
That is what we think, but that is not true. If you get to any average office in Lagos, it is staffed highly by Southeasterners. Get to any MTN office, get to any bank, get to any
I
business
disagree.
establishment. It is staffed
Mr.
mainly
Damola.
by Southeasterners. So it is not just it's why I'm saying that we've been brainwashed as a people.
No, but
and that brainwash is functioning. We assume without finding out, is it true or is it not?
But how did you come about the statistics? How do you know the number of Igbos and number of Yorubas in
The next time you
corporate world?
enter any corporate office, the next time you get to any corporate office, just count. And do a random survey like that, and you discover that in most offices, they are staffed by Southeasterners. Southeasterners actually enjoy air-conditioned work more than Southwesterners. I put it to you. Put it to test.
Okay, so Mr. Damola,
Yes, ma'am.
Uche, and Mr. Wakuche, it has been a wonderful time. So this is my final question. We've had a lot of think pieces about the African race. We've had a lot to say, a lot to share, a lot to counter and support, and a lot to give excuses for. How can the African race embrace ourselves and, towards the Africans in diaspora, towards the Europeans and the Asians, we get to that point where we are no longer seen as the inferior race or the lesser race? What can we do differently?
The Western world projects Africa in such a bad light that using their media, and which has a very wide coverage. Something happened in 2000. Okay, The Economist is a British magazine,
very influential. Globally.
Very influential and widely read by over almost 1 million readers.
I read it
globally
by the most important people.
Well,
I read it.
At least they have a large number of readers.
Audience, and
Audience.
it's influential.
And it's global.
It forms government policies.
On that magazine, they had this cover, where they had the map of Africa. Okay? And this map was overlaid by a man, a black man, an image of a black man, strained by the weight of a shouldered weapon. I don't know if you can use your imagination.
Okay.
A shouldered weapon. And guess what? This publishers titled that particular image, gave the title, The Hopeless Continent. This happened in 2000. The hopeless continent, living in a polyethnic nation, multicultural, we have this. They condensed it to 3 condemning words.
They know what they are saying. They put it in place.
So they do this projection because when people read it, when their citizens read it, oh, that's black side. That's why they call us, some whites call blacks black monkeys. Till date.
Let me say this. Does this come across to you? Just a second, please. Hi, my name is Damola, and you're welcome to my YouTube channel. This week, click on the subscribe button. This that I just did, is it something we are used to? Have you seen it before?
Yes.
Would you do it if you start a YouTube channel?
I have a YouTube
You most
channel.
likely would. That's probably how you
definitely.
start your show on your YouTube channel. You introduce yourself and you
Yes.
tell them about what you're going to get in today's
Definitely.
episode.
Definitely.
Do you know where we got that from? We've all been brainwashed. That's where I'm going to. See, the world we live in today has exalted some things way above some, that if you want to profit, this is how to go. And all of us are getting indoctrinated into that sphere. That's how we think, that's how we reason, that's how we behave. And that is what has been condensed into the definition of the African man today. And both Africans and Europeans have come to accept it as the standard. A typical African man sees himself as inferior to a typical white man. If a white man comes here now, you see people like, stand up, sir. Yet if a black man walks into the midst of whites, I do not see that.
White.
I do not, but a typical African would honor and worship, essentially revere a white man. But the reverse is not the case. It is because we've been conditioned that way. My pointing this out sounds like I'm defending a certain thing. No, but I'm just reporting facts that this is who we are, this is how we've been conditioned, and it will take more than just sitting down and talking to change things.
The Western world has a way they operate. I've been involved in international business. You have your capital, but you don't have the expertise. You write a company abroad. They give you all their conditions. You fulfill it. At the end of the day, they'll tell you, not interested. It's happened so many times. I was in the fast food industry for many years. $1 million went down the drain. These people have embassies here. They have trade attaches, commercial attaches, military attaches, and other people, personnel. They don't take decisions based on what our government says. It's what their people on the ground report. They file weekly reports, monthly reports. So why has McDonald's refused to come to Nigeria till today? Power. Just power. You know a business plan, and you're saying that you're going to be running alternative power supply in case of, because their food is cheap. It's not be affordable. Once that cost is factored in, it will not be profitable. Their franchises will fail. So when you clean up your government, you fumigate your government, you get things right, you ensure justice, they see how trade disputes are settled. Their companies, you have the population, but you don't have the per capita income or the purchasing power. They can create that for you. They can create that for you. But when trade disputes linger for 7-8 years, all these things, they won't come in. China taught the world free trade zones.
Why must the white man come in? That is the source of
Because
our
we
problem.
don't have the capital.
We do not need
China, you are
the
seeing today,
capital.
China virtually has the biggest external reserves in the world.
I think that is the root of the African
But
problem.
China did not.
Because we expect, we
China-
want the white man to come.
No, without him, now.
That is the problem.
Wait, I'm coming.
So when you say we don't have the capital, I think Africa controls over 60% of the economy.
They take our capital
Because
and they give back our capital
It's
to
just
us.
that we don't know how to use our resources.
Let me land.
Well,
See, listen to me. The man that changed China was a man that Chairman Mao, the first communist.
How about the man that changed Cuba?
Wait, I'm coming with.
You remember he locked down Cuba from internal
coming.
influx. Was the only way he could change Cuba.
Chairman Mao ruled China and closed the economy. We must produce everything. 70 million Chinese died of hunger. And he died. The man that was displaced, the man called Deng Xiaoping, came in. Chairman Mao, he was estranged from Chairman Mao, but he was the most senior party leader. They brought him. The first thing they did, that all the Chinese that had left China, I want the best economists of China to come back. How do we get this country working? They say that this communist model of the economy won't work. One of my best sayings in life. And I said, okay, what will work? Say that you can practice communist government and free market economy. And I called his party chieftains. I said, this is the way we are going to go. He said, we cannot run the two. He now told them something. I don't care if the cat is white or black. Can it catch mice? That's what propelled China. That's why Mercedes-Benz, all of them came in.
into China.
Labor is always cheap in the short term. If Mercedes-Benz comes and assembles a big plant here, they'll pay us cheap labor. But by the time other competitors want to benefit from what Benz is coming, in 5 years, labor will go up. Labor will go up. Labor is the most uncontrollable variable in the factors of production. Yeah. Short term is always cheap. Long term, it goes up. The average Chinese worker now is about $30,000 a year without going to school, just to operate one machine. So that is the way to go. We need to, what works for us? What can work for us? This unitary system has failed us. The regional system, we achieved more economic growth than what we are doing now. We should go back to it. That is the way to go. See, the black man has proven that he cannot manage a large entity, but we can manage smaller entities.
It is not about a bigger entity or a smaller entity.
Like me now, I'm going to tell you something now. I cannot be a polygamist. I don't have the mentality.
I can.
No,
I can.
Naturally you can.
20, 70.
I can't.
Not a problem.
I cannot focus on more than one man at a time.
Maybe that's the reason why you think your unitary growth system is not working.
Yes, I can't.
Maybe that is the reason why.
I can't.
Okay, so it's been a wonderful time having Mr. Damola Uche and Mr. Wakuche on the Resurgence podcast today. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you on the next episode of the Resurgence podcast. Thank you. Bye.